Thank you, Madhuri, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to Ivy Cap Day. And very, very good afternoon to the panelists here. We have a exciting set of companies and founders. Many of them whom you probably know and recognize from previous Ivy Cap days. The difference is that they were still in the early stage of growth, perhaps last time or last few times you've seen them. Today, they are household names, whether you think of a biryani or whether you are a lingerie shopper or a fashion shopper or even jewelry. So we have 5 of our star companies here. And I'll just start by, first of all, requesting each of them to spend maybe 30 seconds to 45 seconds to summarize what you do and where your company is at in your entire journey. So can we start with you, PK?
Yeah. Talking about Bewakoof, today we are one of the largest D2C fashion brands in India. And as a brand, we stand for enabling expressions. And we specialize into making fun and expressive merchandise. Into a journey today, the brand is at a scale of 300 crores in brand sales. And we have built a following of 6.1 million people on social media, have more than 10 million app downloads. And we are one of the rare D2C brands for whom more than 90% from the transaction still happens on our own platform.
Pankaj, you want to go next?
Yeah, absolutely. So, hi. So we guys are predominantly, direct-to-consumer personal care brand. We started with lingerie as our core, and then we expanded into several other categories: loungewear, activewear, shapewear. Recently moved into personal care as well. We operate in a bridge to premium space, and we take a lot of pride that 60% of business comes from tier 2, tier 3 audience. So we're a full stack mind to wardrobe tech platform, which enables us to reach almost 4 million plus customers now. We have sold almost 30 million products. And we're selling a product every 2.5 seconds now.
Great. From lingerie and fashion to biryani, Vishal is the co-founder of BBK. Welcome, Vishal. Tell us about BBK.
Yeah, so biryani by kilo, very happy to say we are 150 crores almost revenue now in more than 20 Indian cities, and the category leader in biryani and kebabs in India. And we have been able to achieve it in around 5 years. And we are growing 80% CAGR. And I think so we have 3 things running here for us. First, of course, is D2C. Second is being the category leader. And third, being the cloud kitchen model here. So I think the D2C is a big disruptor that I think we'll all get to that. But that's about, we are just happy to make everyone happy through their stomachs.
Yes, you certainly do. I can tell you that, get rave reviews from people who know and have tasted your biryani. BG is trying to serve D2C cross-border. So that's very unique. BG, why don't you tell us something about eShakti?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Ashish, and hi, everybody. eShakti is, I'm very proud about eShakti as an Indian, because normally when you go abroad, you normally don't see Indian brands there serving the mainstream market. So eShakti serves the mainstream American woman in our own brand name. So we are a consumer brand, that too in fashion, and that too in a leadership position. We are the #1 player in the US for custom clothing for women. And right now, I think the other thing which I'm very happy about is when COVID hit the US market around March, April, the business came down by 50%. And how we managed to come through that period all the way till, say, February of this year. In March, I think the vaccines really kicked in and normalcy started returning. It's not fully normal, but we have got back to normal. that also speaks to something about the kind of team we have. So these are the two things that suggest to us. And during this period, whatever we started out with, saying how scalable is the market, it's extremely scalable. Do you have competitive barriers? Yes, because if you have no competition, because what we do is very hard to do. And do we have a team? Yes, during this COVID period, we didn't stop recruiting. We got our CMO, CFO, CMO is ex-Unilever, CFO is ex-Deloitte, and product managers from IMA and Bajaj. We built our team. So for us, scalability, competitive barriers, as well as people. These are the three things I think all of us will agree a business needs to succeed. And we seem to have the building blocks. So the coming years, I'm very excited about.
Thank you, BG. Certainly very impressive to go target the US consumer with brands out of India. Gaurav, coming to you. You're serving Indian women through the thing they love most, jewelry. So tell us a little bit about that. You're on mute, Gaurav.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Gaurav, CEO and founder of Bluestone. We are India's leading D2C fine jewelry brand. We started in 2012 with an online first approach. And for first 5 years, we only sold online. However, in that time, we had actually taken full control of our demand side and supply side. We're also a full stack business. So all the way from designing to manufacturing jewelry, we do everything in-house. 3 years back, we started our omni-channel journey also. And so far, we have rolled out 50 stores. Actually, it has been going phenomenally well, especially after we rolled out our stores. So year over year, we are growing at almost 100% right now. This year, so we'll be exiting this financial year with almost 1,000 crore in run rate and a profit of almost 50 to 100 crore.
I can't marvel at the fact that in spite of COVID over 2 years, how you have managed to sustain and grow. That's really remarkable and completely contrarian to what we would have expected. Now, just to get this terminology out of the way, it's become a buzzword now, D2C brands. What does that mean? Can someone sort of, maybe Pankaj, can you just explain just so that we get this out of the way and we're talking the same terminology?
Yeah, I think everybody will have their own definition. I'll definitely take a start there. I think D2C brand is a brand that talks directly to the end consumer, right? Without any middleman. I think that's probably the most gross way of putting it out there. Traditionally when you spoke of brands, there was always a distributor, retailer, right? There were these show bookings in Goa. If you talk about the trade that I initially was in, right? And incentivization was always to the seller, right? I mean, it was the battles were fought with 10,000 retailers, probably 200 distributors. I think what has happened today is, for example, it is 4 million touch points. It is 4 million journeys that we're tracking on a daily basis. And I think that's the power of what a D2C is, reaching out with customer directly and getting feedback from them, brutal feedback sometimes, but just cutting out the middleman. I think that's where the core of the D2C term lies.
Anyone has any other nuances to this definition of D2C?
Can I say something, Ashish?
Sure, Vishal, go ahead.
Yeah. So I think D2C, if you have to see the journey of Amazon, I think which everyone knows in the world. There were Barnes and Noble and Borders of the world, which were the traditional retailers. And Amazon came in, it's a behemoth today, like a 2 trillion market cap and billions, hundreds of billions of dollars of sales. So it has disrupted, see, two trends here. The first, of course, the very obvious one, like India has 800 million internet users. So everything is happening on internet. The commerce, the interactions, the social interactions, everything. So D2C brands are a function of that, all the eyeballs and the mind share and the traffic going there versus a traditional high street or a mall. So once that happens, if people are spending few hours on the internet, see what has happened is from theaters, it is to OTTs. So it's everything from the traditional bookstores or traditional retailers to the Amazons of the world, right? So now we have policy bazaars of the world in fintech. We have the Mamaearths of the world, Boat, and of course all the stars here on the panel. So what has really happened is what used to, in Indian context, what used to take 500 crores revenue to reach for traditional players, let's say in beauty industry, to reach in 15, 20 years, now people are reaching in 3 to 4 years. Right, we have at Biryani by Kilo, we are 150 crore, we'll be 500 crores in next 2-3 years. So that is the power, because you've connected without the intermediaries directly going to, in India, if we take the traditional GT channel, which is general trade, these are like probably millions of them. And, the Unilevers of the world used to have the advantage, and rightly so, by having that huge sales force to reach them, those GT channels, millions of them. Today, people like Clovia, Bewakoof can, through D2C channels, by passing all those intermediaries, can just reach all their customers, millions of them. So first, it is what the cost we have saved. Second is, we know the consumer behavior much better because we are directly dealing with them without the distributor or the retailer. We know, like in Biryani by Kilo, we know a customer who eats chicken biryani Sunday afternoon, 12 o'clock. We know that we can ping, if we don't get that order, we know after one Sunday whether to ping that customer. We know the best of those 2 million consumers we serve at Biryani by Kilo, their behavior, their patterns, everything. And that's the reason we have been able to scale so fast. Uber Eats is today the biggest part of Uber, even, so all that is disrupted. And I think the horizontal playing there is the internet and the mind share and the eyeballs, everything being there. So that has disrupted the traditional retailing.
Great, Vishal. I think you answered part of my next question also, because I want
Ashish, if I may add one very interesting thing, which I think all of us will agree. Certainly this has happened in the US. D2C, if you call online sales as D2C, for clothing was 20% before COVID. Now for clothing, it jumped to 40%. It is settling now almost at 35%. It's almost a doubling of the clothing market. The other interesting piece is a kind of a combination of the old world and the new world, because while you have these brands like Ann Taylor and J. Jill and J. Crew, who are traditionally physical stores, now they are getting into platforms, or they can, if they don't want to, they already filed Chapter 11, and make themselves D2C. So even the traditional players can jump onto the bandwagon with somebody else and become a platform player, and thereby become D2C, which strengthens everybody, because the brands, then all the brands combined drive the traffic to that site. If you have a platform consisting of all these brands.
Yeah.
And so they benefit. And for me, it is advantageous because my business can only be done online, because I'm doing customization. It can't be done in a physical store. So when this market grows in terms of the number of people participating in online purchasing, and when other brands also come on, D2C is going to kind of create new kinds of equations between various players, including the traditional players, which could benefit all of us. So that is the other phenomenal change that has happened. See, normally for somebody to grow like this, for the online market to grow to 35% would have taken 3-4 more years. But it has happened suddenly now. Online share has become very, very high, and it's growing. More people are used to now by shopping. And if they get used to in one area, then they get used to in other areas as well. They're willing to go and shop in other product categories.
Great.
Yeah.
So
just adding, actually just adding one piece here. I think just adding to what everyone else said, D2C, I think is more than just a distribution disruption. It's just not another channel. I think it's a very new way of building brands. It's a very new way of doing a product development with a very fast feedback loop. You can iterate and you can make the products better. It's a very new way of making supply chains agile. And then there are many things that could not have been done without this channel. This avails unlimited shelf space, which is not possible in a store. And that's where it stands out from the traditional brands. And then customization, as one of the panelists said, the customization is a very big use case of being D2C.
No, that's great. You see, we are uncovering several layers of D2C with this discussion. I think we started talking about disintermediation. We spoke about use of the internet. We spoke about how internet is allowing people to scale very fast. Vishal spoke about data. And I think you are uncovering the fact that that data and that customer intimacy and personalization can actually drive through your entire supply chain, your entire business model, making it more agile and so on. So can you just...
In fact, that personalization is also connected with on-demand, which makes the whole thing sustainable and green. So online allows personalized on-demand manufacture, which means gradually the era of having all kinds of inventories locked up in different geographies will go away. And you could, in fact, Shein in China has built a massive business that way, the $15 billion business, because they take it, they then consolidate everything, make it, and then send it off, and they do it at a very, very low cost. So, so they're all, you're right. I think they unlock a lot of different potentials, which by themselves would not have happened if the other hadn't happened. You know, so it's kind of combining in that way.
So let's actually drill down into that and see how it is, you know, it's not just disintermediation, it goes all the way to a different business model and almost transforming the way you do business, right? So what is it, how is it relevant and how have you done that in your respective businesses? You know, maybe Pankaj, you can start and then we go around the table with some other examples.
Right, so just, I think disentangling the conversation, I think first was what does D2C mean? I think, and that was you reach out to the customer directly, right? And then what it opens up as an opportunity probably is the next step, right? So which we all spoke about, right? So I think D2C also has an online and offline variant to it. You know, what probably the exclusive brand outlet brands were doing, you know, that exactly was also D2C in a lot of ways. But when it comes to the internet, then the whole shelf space and other things get unlocked as well. So I think I'll speak predominantly of lingerie, right? Because, you know, that still is 60% of my business, you know, and though other channels are fighting harder and other categories are fighting harder. The way I see it is that, you know, we started, you know, when we started, everybody had just one question alone, that, you know, why is there not 1,000 crore, you know, women's innerwear brand in India, right? And that was the only question everybody asked me, right? And the first question was that, you know, why isn't there a 200 crore brand, you know? So the answer is yes, you know, we are a 300 crore innerwear brand in India, you know, for women right now. So I think what changed for us was that traditionally what everybody was trying to do in this category was that everybody was working with standard distribution in the just like the way offline men's innerwear had worked. And just because there were 40 sizes, they were not able to replicate the same in the women's innerwear. You know, we had to take a step back and say, you know, it's not a one size fits all, literally, because we have 40 sizes. You know, this model is not going to work, right? So the way we have to do it is that, you know, you have to break it down into two parts. How can you disrupt the supply chain and how do you disrupt the distribution, right? And those were the two battles we took that we're going to fight. And fortunately, I think the entire team was absolutely aligned to fighting that war at the back of technology and, you know, which basically, you know, translates into scale. So I think that's a very high level of, you know, what we did. So today we have a platform, which is a pure play D2C platform where once the lingerie use case was proven, you know, we quickly landed with another category and said, hey, can this scale? You know, that went from literally 0 to 7 crores, you know, in less than 7 months. So now it's a platform play. Now we know that, you know, every time adding a new category in the ecosystem, you know, it quickly, you know, it takes over because there is a certain amount of love that we've already built with our, you know, community, you know, across the country.
Great. Before I go to the next question, in case the audience has any questions for these remarkable founders on the panel, please feel free to drop them and I'll pick it up. But, you know, Gaurav, coming to you and talking about just shifts in consumer mindset, right? And personalization. Can you throw a little bit of light on what you are seeing in your domain?
Sure. So in our category, so unlike Pankaj, where no one asked us the question that there's no 1,000 crore brand, we were told that there are so many 10,000 crore brands. Why is there a need for one more brand?
Right. Exactly.
So yeah, there's always questions, but But in our case, something interesting was happening. So our categories, fine jewelry, gold and diamond jewelry, has always been very traditional, very family businesses owned. I mean, for generations, people have been buying from the same jeweler. So it has been that kind of a category. What had happened because of that, the innovations were totally lacking in that. I mean, you have that strong relationship for 4 generations, you are getting your business, you don't need to innovate. So while in every other category, we were seeing the small format stores or small shops giving way to large format, and then that large format also ceding some space to online players like Myntra, Nykaa, Flipkart, etc. Nothing of that sort was happening in jewelry. But users' behavior was changing, right? Users' behavior are not going to be different across different categories because they are so used to now browsing all the time and not only on the weekends when they go to Shoppers Stop or Lifestyle. Now they are browsing before sleeping. They are on Myntra, they are on Nykaa, they are on so many of these portals. Even before that, and jewelry's, the experience in jewelry category was even more primitive. It was that counter-driven experience. Where you actually go to a shop when you're only looking to only go to a shop when you're looking to buy something. You don't go there just to browse, like you go to Lifestyle, Shoppers Stop also, or you're on those websites. Now, ironically, what was happening was that a woman who were to shop for let's say 2,000 rupee footwear, she was spending 3 weeks looking for which pair to buy. But when the same woman was buying a ring or an earring, which is almost a 1,50,000 or 1 lakh rupee item, she had only half an hour to choose. She enters into a store, the pressure is so much. You're offered tea, coffee,
Right.
different things, and then few trays, and then a constant pressure, because which is always there in that counter-driven buying experience. And that was the only experience available to that woman at that point in time. So the moment we opened up so many designs and so many choices online, what we noticed was the browsing picked up a lot. No woman till now had an option to actually go through 2,000 or 3,000 ring designs. Never happened in a store.
Right.
The inventory sucks up so much capital that even if you want, you can't.
Correct.
So that behavior was happening, and then when we spoke to all those customers, they said, and the ones who were buying also, for every buyer, there were at least 20 to 50 who were spending plenty of times over several weeks on the website, but were not converting. When we spoke to buyers and asked them, why did you buy? Their number one reason was design. We just did not find these designs anywhere. And just because you cannot walk into a jewelry store and tell them I'm here just to browse, it doesn't happen that way. Okay, so that was happening. And for those non-buyers, the reason was that we love the designs. That's why we're spending so much time. But we still need the comfort of touch and feel. That experience, that offline experience still has value. Like we see in automobiles, like we see in houses, where we do a lot of research online. But you don't click a buy now button on cardeko.com or carwale.com. You still do your test drive. So that was the kind of behavior that we were observing. And that is where this whole, the moment we opened this omni-channel, it actually opened up plenty of business because all that business was already generated. We just did not provide it the right mechanism, and we had just not completed that experience. We had started that experience, we had not completed. So the moment that omni-channel store came in the vicinity, in fact, the moment we open a store, our business in that catchment goes up by 10x without doing anything different.
That's very interesting. I think we'll come back to omni-channel. I think, Vishal, I have a question for you on that one. But before we do that, personalization, PK, how do you handle personalization? Can you give me some sense of what is the core capabilities and competence that a D2C brand has over others in order to be able to personalize for their customers?
Yeah, so I think personalization has two parts of the journey. There is one part where you have an assortment which is ready-made, and then you use data to show the right assortment to different consumers based on their past journeys, past visits, and transaction history. And then there is a second part where it's more about the customization, where people can customize what they want. And I think that's where one of the successful stories we have in front of us is eShakti, For us, so far, we have been focusing on the first part of the journey where since we are in the business of expressions, and expressions are very much related to certain personalities and interests that people have. So our journey has been creating that assortment of expressions across the board. And that's where the unlimited shelf space enables us. A business like us could not have been able to do the justice in our category and could not have been created offline in the first place. D2C enabled that for us because the kind of things that people want to express is a wide spectrum, from feelings to their identities to their passions. It just ranges, like those expression can go into 200, 300 tags, types of expressions that are there. And now is the task of how do we show the right expression to the right consumer. For us, that is the main problem in personalization that we have been solving for. And now we'll be rolling out customization also, where people can come and they can customize and create their own expressions.
Great. Gaurav spoke about omni-channel, and I just want, Pankaj, your and Vishal's take on omni-channel. Vishal, what's your take on omni-channel, and what does the real storefront do to boost your brand and sales in any geography?
I would say omni-channel will emerge as the biggest truth, of retail, going forward. And I say it carefully, but in every industry, the right intersection of offline and online is going to be different. Like, in jewelry, there has to be a trust. So how do you transfer that trust? In restaurant industry, if I can speak, the rentals, very high rentals, almost 15% as a percentage of revenue, and very high capex, 2 to 3 crores, or at least more than 1 crore, used to be Achilles heel of this industry. Because of that high capex, it's very difficult to get it back, makes it very risky, and very high rentals make it very difficult. So even before the cloud kitchens came, right, 5-7 years back worldwide. So that took care of the capex and the rentals. Rent as a percentage of revenue became 5%, capex became 30-40 lakhs. But see, the problem, what I think a lot of people in cloud kitchen business didn't understand is, now if you are not on a high street or a mall, how do you acquire customers? How do you build a brand? And here the food becomes the hero. And how do you reach those particular customers who are your segment? Because they will now not be coming to you in a mall or a high street. So how do you reach? So it is the whole spectrum of activities a company has to do to become a D2C. And especially, let's say in our industry, F&B, okay, you became a cloud kitchen, but to become a right D2C, do you have the mindset of acquiring those customers online, building a brand online, the technology to have that seamless experience with your customers all throughout? But getting back to the omni-channel, so see, Biryani by Kilo, our strategy is to put one dine-in outlet in each city. What we do in tier 1 cities like Delhi and Bombay, like we first put like 10 delivery outlets and then a dine-in outlet. It's risky in big cities because of high rental, high capex. In tier 2 towns like Lucknow, Kanpur, Ludhiana, Jalandhar, we do put a front-facing outlet first, but with a limited dine-in, so that because in tier 2 cities, customers might have more time, less traffic. They need to build trust first with the brand. So you create that first layer of dine-in outlet. So the omni-channel has to work. Even in the same industry, tier 2 and tier 1, the omni-channel definition is different for F&B in our industry. But I think Biryani by Kilo got it right. We get 10-15% of our revenue from dine-in, rest 80 to 90% from online channels, and that's how but I think it's a whole stack of acquisition, technology, brand building, supply chain, which all of us have been saying. Someone has to get that right to be the right D2C brand.
Got it. I'm getting quite a few questions here about marketing channels, about which is a favorite, which is the best source to acquire customers, traditional brands and D2C brands merging. But let's do it in a different way. I'd like to do it like a rapid fire, so very quick answers. And I'll take a contrarian view because these are some of the pushbacks that you hear. on D2C brands all the time. And I think almost all of you are well and truly capable of facing bouncers. So here you go. The first sort of contrarian view here is that D2C brands will finally be eaten up by the platforms. If there are large platforms, they'll come, they have better data, they have more money power, they'll make their own brands, they can do more personalization. So D2C brands won't exist after a certain time. Who wants to take that?
So I think I can quickly take this one. Sorry, Gaurav, you were
Go ahead, Pankaj.
All five.
I'll come up.
But yeah, Pankaj, you go first. Yeah.
I'll go down on a very, very simple math. Let's go down to the first principles, of brand. And that's why, the whole concept of, it's not like you're an online brand. If you're a brand, you're a brand. If you're selling just online, then you're not a online brand. Then you're an online guy who figured out a way to sell your product, right? So I think the question is more fundamental. Are you a brand? Are you not a brand? Once you have figured that out, then it's a function of where you're selling, right? And if that was true, and there are I think everybody ends up looking at the US market. So please go ahead, whoever has this question, just go back to the US market and check out. There's a bunch of interesting gameplays which are already happening out there as we speak. But I think at least in a country like India, where 90% of your country is still offline, I think a very strong omni play will eventually work out, and D2C will itself continue to grow the way it is growing. It is anyways, it's more than we can all handle at this point of time. But I think if you are truly a brand, then the channel will become just one of the things, in what you do. I think that's the position that we at least feel, especially in the category, that we are in. Gaurav,
any other points?
I'll just add on to what Pankaj has mentioned. So typically over time, what happens is, so there are these platforms that come, which are more like service provider platforms, right? Because when you're talking product, you're talking brand. In fact, at least in most of the product categories. So these platforms over time actually keep on becoming commodity. So when Amazon came in 2099, etc., they were innovators in payments, they were innovators in delivery, they were innovating in a lot of things. But over time, internet fundamentally is a killer of businesses, right? So it just makes everything so effortless, be it reaching out to your customers, be it whatever. So actually platforms will find it very difficult to differentiate themselves, because platform is just a platform. Someone else will also develop the same code. Someone else will also write the same platform. So in fact, and the more these services that platforms would typically write will keep on becoming commodities, the easier it would be for products, for people who are manufacturing and creating products. It'll be that much more easier and seamless for them to directly connect with their customers. And that is where we would actually see a lot of innovations in product brands. So what I'm saying is D2C brands might actually so there might be, so the evolution or the rotation in D2C brand itself might increase at a very fast pace. So today this brand is relevant, but 3 years down the line, someone else innovated on something else, and that new D2C brand might actually topple this. Because in earlier world, the distribution itself was so difficult that not everyone sitting at their home could build a brand.
Got it.
It's like Yahoo search versus Google search, right? I mean, the better platform, better service came that kind of kill the other one.
Yeah,
I agree. Ashish, if I can just step in for a second.
Let me take the next one. I think we've got a few rapid fires, so let's do it very quickly. We also, I'm conscious of the time also. The second pushback really is that the only advantage D2C brands have is you guys figured out the internet early, right? And as soon as the traditional brands get their act in place, they'll come back and, then what is the space for you? So who wants to go on that one?
I think that has been set, if I can say, that has been settled by Amazon versus Barnes and Noble or Borders or US, which is quite ahead in this game. So I think these are both sides of the story. I think it's a DNA of a company. You can't really change it overnight. Barnes and Noble saw it for years when Amazon was really rising, and it has been played out very clearly. And we saw it in category Netflix, same thing. When Netflix was getting created, which is, I would say, a D2C brand, versus content players like Disney who are going to traditional theaters, or any of the other MGMs, the big theaters of the big studios of the world. See, everyone sees it, but those DNAs have been made in 50 years, 30 years, 40 years in a company. Those DNAs don't change overnight. And people who are saying D2C brands just got internet before, I think are trivializing or not understanding the matter. How it is the supply chain, it is how you acquire customers, it is the brand building, it is the whole lean mindset. which are Amazon versus, if I can say without demeaning anyone, a Barnes and Noble or Borders or any traditional players, what Netflix did in the traditional content system. It is a whole mindset how you do it in a very lean fashion.
The entire
Yes,
business model, yeah. And,
Yeah.
PK,
My apologies, but we are running against time. We just have we are already on finish the time. So
sure. I think we'll
Sure.
we'll take I think one final round, perhaps to tell everybody where do we see you all in let's say 3 years from now or 5 years from now? What do each of you are build over a 5-year period? Vishal?
So I think you'll see a Biryani by Kilo, which is definitely more than 500 crore plus revenue, pan India, the biggest biryani and kebab brand, at least in 2 more countries, and hopefully more closer to 1,000 crores than 500 crores, and the most loved brand in biryani and kebab category.
Sure. PK?
Yeah, we want to be India's biggest fun and expressive brand, not just fashion, which we are into right now, but across getting into beauty, getting into home, getting into the every broader spectrum of lifestyle. And while we get there, we would want to hold our focus on being a true D2C player. Today, 90% of our sale happens on our own platform. Even with expansion, we would want to focus as we touch our journey to 2,000 crores. At that level also, we are very bullish. At least 50% of it will come on our own platform.
Sure. BG?
We want to be the Xerox of personalization.
Great.
So when somebody says personalization, they should say Shakti.
Very, very clearly articulated. Pankaj?
A very uncomplicated, thought process. So we are problem solvers for our women customers. We'll continue to solve problems, as many as possible, enter as many wardrobes as possible, and cross the 1,000 crore mark in the next 3 years in the process. I think it's as simple as that.
Pankaj has direct access to all the women's bedroom.
Just leave one problem for us.
So my team tells me, I have to be the person who knows what women want, right? So I'm trying to.
Which no man has ever been able to solve.
I'll quickly answer that. So like I mentioned right now, so we are exiting this year at almost 1,000 crore, having already cracked omnichannel, and we are actually in a process of just executing on what we have already figured out, which is also important while we figure out new things as well. So with a quick store rollout from 50 to almost 300 stores in next 2 years, we expect year-on-year doubling to continue for at least 2 more years. So we'll reach almost 4,000 crores by FY24. Beyond that, I think the growth would be in double digits. And so also in nutshell, I think in 5 years, we'll be somewhere between 8,000 to 10,000 crores on revenue run rate and generating profits of between 1,000 to 1,500 crores.
Remarkable. Thank you very much, gentlemen. This has been an absolute pleasure, very insightful. And, there's no doubt in our mind, because of course we have invested in all of you, that you are building some of the finest companies out there in your respective spaces. And it's a lot more than just selling online, a lot more, as we understood during the course of this discussion. And wish you all great success going forward. And I'm sure we'll see you again in next several other IVCAP days to learn more from you. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Ashish. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.